The sun rose gently over Vanuvana Grove, casting golden hues on the bamboo leaves swaying in the morning breeze. Beneath the towering trees, the Buddha gathered his disciples, his serene presence filling the air with profound calm. His robe fluttered softly, and his kind eyes met those of his devoted followers. Ready to share wisdom, the Buddha began his teaching with a story, his voice flowing like the stream nearby. There once lived a man burdened by stones, he said, his tone steady and soothing, drawing attention with every word. Each stone represented a memory of sorrow, a pain that clung to him, refusing to loosen its grip. The Buddha gestured for the merchant to sit among the disciples, offering space for stillness and reflection. He then lifted a small, smooth stone from the ground, holding it delicately between his fingers. He grew accustomed to the weight on his back, believing it defined his existence, validated his suffering as meaningful, the Buddha said. His words echoed softly, carried by the wind that rustled through the bamboo grove. One day, as he crossed a river, his bag tore apart, scattering stones into the flowing waters below. The disciples exchanged glances, pondering the significance of the man's scattered stones, their eyes reflecting curiosity and contemplation. Desperately, he tried to recover the stones, chasing them as they slipped away. Carried by the river's current, the Buddha continued. The sunlight filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the disciples' faces, adding a vivid backdrop to the Buddha's tale. After some time, exhausted and trembling, the man sat by the riverbank, his shoulders lighter than they had been in years. He wept by the river, not for the loss of his stones, but for the years spent carrying their weight, the Buddha said. His voice held a gentle yet resolute tone, compelling his disciples to reflect on the depth of his words. The river flowed on, indifferent to his sorrow, yet it cleansed him of the burden that had bound him. The disciples remained silent, processing the layers of meaning hidden within the story, sensing the resonance of its truth in their own lives. Our minds, like the man's bag, hold the stones of our traumas, memories we clutch tightly, believing they are ours, said the Buddha. Observing his disciples, the Buddha added, attachment to the past and fear for the future rob us of present clarity. The weight of regrets and anticipations holds no power but what we give it within our minds, he said. The disciples nodded in agreement, their attention unwavering, absorbing the Buddha's words as they illuminated paths toward liberation from pain. To let go of these stones is to free ourselves from their weight, to find lightness in the flow of life, he said. The Buddha paused, his silence allowing his disciples to breathe in his teachings. As the grove grew still, attuned to his presence, the past, like the river, flows onward, carrying its lessons but leaving its pain behind if we choose to let it go. He turned to face the disciples directly, his gaze as steadfast as the bamboo bending in harmony with the currents of air. Letting go is not an act of erasure, but an acceptance of impermanence, a surrender to the nature of existence itself. The disciples bowed their heads, understanding the profound simplicity of the Buddha's wisdom, their hearts filled with reverence and gratitude. Release your stones, my friends, for they are no longer yours to carry. They belong to the currents of time, the Buddha said, his voice softened. Yet it carried the gravity of universal truth, resonating with the disciples as they internalized the depth of his teaching. The disciples sat in silence, absorbing the truth like rain nourishing the soil. May this lesson guide you to peace, the Buddha concluded, his voice steady as the river of wisdom. The disciples rose slowly, their minds lighter, their hearts unburdened, ready to embrace the path the Buddha had illuminated. Through his words, the Buddha planted seeds of transformation, reminding his disciples that the art of release brings profound liberation. The bamboo grove stood silent witness to the sacred teaching, its towering presence a living metaphor for resilience and grace. Each disciple carried the story within, not as a burden but as a beacon, guiding them through the labyrinth of their lives. The Buddha's wisdom echoed within the depths of their minds, a reminder that letting go is an act of profound courage. The day faded into evening, the sun setting behind the grove, casting long shadows that stretched across the tranquil land. As the disciples departed, the teachings remained etched into their souls, silent but powerful, illuminating their paths forward. The Buddha watched as the grove fell quiet, his serene smile reflecting his joy in sharing truths that liberate the human spirit. Yet, among the group, Devadatta appeared restless, his steps uneven and hurried. He turned to the Buddha, his face shadowed by fear. "Master," Devadatta said, "the forest teems with danger, hidden threats lurking in the unknown." The Buddha paused, gesturing for the group to sit near a flowering bush. The river carried the stones onward, merging them with the currents, teaching us to release what weighs us down. Another day, another teaching. The Buddha stood beneath the branches of a tree, its roots deep in the ancient earth. The air felt alive, yet tranquil, as disciples gathered around, ready to listen to the enlightened one's wisdom. He began with a story, his voice gentle but firm, resonating with timeless truth. "There was once a tree in the heart of a vast forest," the Buddha said, his words flowing with serene clarity. It stood tall and sturdy, listening to countless whispers carried by the wind, secrets of joy and sorrow alike. The disciples exchanged glances, their eyes reflecting curiosity and deep attentiveness as the Buddha spoke of the tree's patient existence. One day, a traveler approached the tree, her face heavy with pain, her heart weary from the wounds of betrayal. He said, leaning against the tree's trunk. She wept, letting her tears soak into the bark, mingling her sorrow with the natural world. The Buddha continued. The wind stirred softly, carrying his words outward, as though nature itself was absorbing his teachings. The traveler cried out to the tree, "How can I forget the suffering inflicted upon me? How can I move forward?" The Buddha said. He paused briefly, allowing the words to settle like leaves falling gently to the forest floor. The tree remained silent, its roots deep, its branches reaching for the heavens, reflecting both resilience and growth. Devadatta's expression shifted as the wisdom began to sink into his heart. "But Master," Devadatta asked, "how do we protect ourselves when danger is real and near?" "Focus on what you can control and surrender the rest to the flow of life," the Buddha answered. "The rains feed my roots, bitter or sweet. The sun warms my leaves, whether gentle or harsh." The disciples sat in silence, reflecting on the simplicity and depth of the teaching. Every moment, whether joyful or perilous, carries the gift of presence, the Buddha continued. The traveler listened to the tree's wisdom, her tears subsiding as she found solace in its profound truth. The Buddha continued. She realized that to grow was not to erase the past, but to weave it into the tapestry of one's existence. Devadatta nodded slowly, his restlessness fading like mist in the morning sun. The Buddha rose, and the group followed, their steps lighter and more mindful. He gestured toward the tree above, its leaves whispering softly in the breeze, a living embodiment of his teachings. If we resist the trials of life, we stagnate, for growth arises from embracing impermanence and learning to transform pain. The disciples bowed their heads, acknowledging the wisdom imparted by the Buddha, feeling the resonance of his truth in their beings. Become like the tree, rooted yet reaching, steadfast yet open, able to transform suffering into strength and wisdom, he said. The morning continued, but the fear that had gripped Devadatta dissolved into understanding and calm. The forest, with all its unseen perils, became a place of beauty and reflection for those who listened. Through his story, The Buddha illuminated the path of transformation, planting seeds of wisdom that would grow within his disciples. The tree, ancient and wise, stood as a symbol of resilience and acceptance, a teacher in its own right. The birds sang still, their songs weaving joy into the quietude that carried the lesson forward. Another day, another journey led the Buddha and his disciples to the banks of a wide and tranquil river. The sunlight danced on the rippling waters, casting reflections that shimmered like jewels. An elderly farmer approached, kneeling respectfully before the Buddha with sorrow etched deeply on his face. "Master," the farmer began, "I have lost my land, my crops, and my possessions, and my life feels desolate." The Buddha knelt beside the farmer, his touch calming as he placed a hand gently on the earth. The tree stood in quiet solitude as night fell, its leaves rustling in harmony with the stars above, cradling the echoes of wisdom. The Buddha watched the grove grow still, his presence resonating as a beacon of compassion and transformation. The grove, timeless and steadfast, bore witness to the cycle of life and the art of becoming. Embracing impermanence, the teachings extended beyond the grove, carried into the vast expanse, guiding those seeking solace and renewal. The cycle of growth and transformation repeated in the grove, its rhythm unbroken, reflecting the eternal wisdom imparted by the Buddha. The rain fell softly as the grove slept, nourishing the roots of the tree, symbolic of the teachings of resilience. Another day, another teaching. The Buddha arrived at the edge of a tranquil lake, its surface mirroring the morning sky. Disciples gathered in silence, sitting on the soft earth, their hearts open to the wisdom their teacher would impart. The lake's gentle ripples harmonized with the Buddha's calm voice, resonating with timeless serenity. The Buddha dipped his hands into the cool waters, letting droplets trickle slowly back into the lake's embrace. "Once, there was a potter who crafted a magnificent vessel," he began, his tone steady and inviting, drawing the disciples closer to his tale. The vessel was meant to hold the finest wine, its purpose noble, its beauty a testament to skilled craftsmanship, the Buddha said. He paused briefly, gazing at the disciples, inviting them to immerse themselves fully in the stories unfolding. Over the years, the vessel was filled with vinegar, milk, and water, each leaving stains that altered its pristine form. The disciples exchanged thoughtful glances, pondering the significance of the vessel's changing contents and its relationship to their own lives. The potter mourned the vessel's tainted state, believing its original purpose lost, its beauty irreparably diminished. The Buddha continued. One day, a traveler found the vessel abandoned and placed it in a nearby lake, where it floated gently, he said. The Buddha's words rippled like the lake's surface, carried by the breeze as the disciples listened intently. The water embraced the vessel, cleansing it of its stains, returning it to its untainted essence. The disciples leaned closer, their minds engaged, their spirits lifted by the transformation embedded within the vessel's journey. The traveler returned the vessel to the potter, who marveled at its renewal, realizing its beauty and purpose were never truly lost, said the Buddha. He raised his hands, letting droplets fall back into the lake, his movements mirroring the story's central truth of release. We, too, are vessels, shaped by life's experiences, filled with joys and sorrows, each leaving marks upon our essence, the Buddha said. His disciples nodded, their eyes fixed on his serene expression, their hearts absorbing the wisdom flowing from his words. It is not the stains that define us, but the act of renewal, the cleansing that returns us to our true nature, the Buddha continued. He gestured toward the lake, its calm waters reflecting the purity of the sky, embodying the act of renewal and transformation. To let go of past traumas is to empty the vessel, to create space for new joys, new wisdom, new paths. The disciples bowed their heads, their thoughts resonating with the depth of the Buddha's teachings, their hearts lighter with newfound understanding. The act of cleansing is not one of erasure but of acceptance and renewal. A return to the essence of being, said the Buddha. The grove grew still, the breeze gentle and steady, as if nature itself bowed in reverence to the sacred truths revealed. The disciples remained seated, their spirits uplifted, ready to integrate the wisdom into their lives with courage and compassion. Through his story, the Buddha illuminated the art of letting go, planting seeds of renewal that would blossom within his disciples. The lake, serene and timeless, stood as a symbol of transformation and renewal, a teacher in its own silent way. The Buddha smiled softly, his gaze filled with compassion, his joy evident in sharing wisdom that liberates and transforms the human spirit. The disciples rose slowly, their hearts unburdened, their minds clearer, ready to embrace the path illuminated by the Enlightened One. The grove whispered to the lake, carrying the Buddha's words outward, extending his teachings beyond the bounds of the sacred place. Each disciple carried the story within them, not as a weight, but as a beacon, guiding them through life's challenges. The day faded gently, the sun descending behind the horizon, casting soft shadows across the land and the disciples' hearts. As the disciples departed, their minds held the Buddha's wisdom, illuminating their paths forward with hope and resolve. The Buddha watched the grove fall quiet, his serene presence remaining as a beacon of compassion and renewal for all who sought solace. The grove and lake stood timeless, cradling the echoes of wisdom imparted by the Enlightened One to his devoted disciples. The grove, steadfast and tranquil, bore witness to the eternal cycle of renewal, embracing impermanence as the essence of existence. The teachings spread outward, carried by the wind and water, guiding those seeking renewal and transformation on their journeys. The cycle of cleansing and renewal repeated in the grove, its rhythm unbroken, reflecting the eternal truths imparted by the Buddha. The lake sparkled as night fell, cradling the stars in its reflection, embodying the serenity and wisdom of transformation. His words resonated with a profound truth, prompting thoughtful silence among the group. Incorporating mindfulness, humility, and observation nurtures this balance, the Buddha said. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.